What's up, everybody? Welcome to this Sunday edition of The Sweat. I'm Jessie Coffield, and I know everybody missed me terribly during my week-long vacation. I just have heard a lot of rumors about that. Anyways, I'm alongside the one and only Brendan Glasheen.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Talking about myself.
Yeah, we're joined by a DK Live duo. They did not go on vacation. Julian Edlow and Jeff Ulrich of DK Live. Guys, we've got some news and updates for today. Jessie, get us started, please.
The heat is on in Miami. 305, what up? Ryan Tannehill returns for the Dolphins after missing the past 5 games with a shoulder injury. So, Jeff, the Dolphins have failed to score a touchdown in the last 2 games. We know Tannehill isn't 100% healthy, but can he spark this Miami offense against a red-hot Colts team?
I mean, you might see a little bit of improvement. I'm not really bullish on any of the Miami offensive players, so to speak. I think if there is one player you might want to take a shot on today, that's Kenny Stills, who has a really good history with Tannehill. They actually have a very, very strong connection going back like 2 years. So that is the one Miami player that might be on my radar. Otherwise, this is a tougher matchup than people think, going up against a Colts defense that's really been improved this year. So I'm still not looking at anyone else on Miami or looking to stack this team at all.
So, Julian, with Tannehill in, are there any guys you have your eye on now?
Yeah, not really. I'm kind of on the same page as Jeff here in the sense, can Tannehill spark Miami's offense? Sure, he can make them a little bit better. And the Colts offense has been, like, shredding it lately. So Miami's going to have to, try and keep pace. So they're going to be throwing the ball. And a guy like Kenny Stills could wind up having a big game. But I don't necessarily think just because Tannehill's playing and it's in Indy in the Dome that the Dolphins are suddenly players you have to target when we have so many other good targets on this slate.
Fellas, last we saw the Patriots was 2 weeks ago when they were getting rocked by the Titans. They returned from the bye today and faced the 3-7 Jets. Gronk slated to return today after missing the last 2 games with a lingering back injury. It seems every year there's a back injury with Rob Gronkowski. So is Gronk, Julian, going to be a key part of the Patriots riding the ship today?
You would expect him to be. It hasn't been a good season for Gronk. He has, I think it's 29 catches, less than 500 yards. He hasn't seen the end zone since week 1 against Houston. I know that. So he's had a full pretty much month off at this point with the 2 games that he missed and the bye week. It's been a full month since he played, essentially. So we're going to see how healthy he is. So that means it does carry a little bit of risk anytime that we're trusting a player that's been out of the mix for this long. But obviously the plan with the Patriots here was let's get Gronk a long period of rest here and bring him back fully healthy and see what he looks like. So you would expect in this matchup, these can be tougher divisional matchups when New England goes on the road to like Buffalo, Miami, New York. They can tend to kind of let down a little bit on offense, but you would think that the plan here is to, force feed Gronk a little bit and see how he looks.
Jeff, does Gronk get involved today?
I think he does. And I mean, just looking at this from a DFS perspective on DraftKings, I mean, you have the top 2 players at tight end, George Kittle and Zach Ertz, probably coming in at pretty good ownership and for good reason. I mean, they've been target hogs. Kittle's setting up as the main weapon of his offense. But you look at the price now on Gronk, he's $5,100. I don't even remember the last time. This is probably the cheapest he's ever been on DraftKings, to be honest, at least in my memory. So you're getting him at a huge discount here and at depressed ownership off of the top 2 players. So this is a very good spot for Brady and Gronk to get off. I mean, Julian mentioned it's like he's coming off a mini IR stint. I mean, he basically had like a month off to heal up. So I think he's in a really good spot today, quite frankly. I know the Jets have played the tight end position fairly well, but again, Patriots come in here as big favorites, big implied team total. They're going to put some points up. So this is a good spot to deploy Gronk at really cheap prices for really cheap Gronk prices, basically.
Jimmy Graham is reportedly in tonight for the Packers despite a broken thumb. So with the news about his thumb and rumors that he's still managing a knee issue, are you staying away from Graham, Jeff, or were you already staying away from him?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jimmy Graham has just been pretty disappointing the entire year. And he's been really hard to figure out. That's the problem for fantasy purposes. There's no idea to feature Jimmy Graham in Green Bay. They just seem to go to him when they like need a big play or something, and then they forget about him. So this is easy, pretty much. You just cross him off your list. You can still roster Lads Kendricks a little bit, but that's the player that he hurts a little bit because Graham's going to be going out there taking 1 or 2 targets away, most likely from Kendricks. So it's going to be hard for Kendricks to really break out, I think, with Jimmy Graham still in the lineup. I still like the Packers receivers a lot. Devontae Adams doesn't lose anything. And the other 2, Valdez-Scantling and St. Brown. I think those are the guys you look to for value as the non-Devontae Adams options.
Yeah, Julian, you look at his numbers. He had 15.5 fantasy points against New England in week 9, but then he had under 3 the next 2 weeks. So Jimmy Graham, he's expected to play, but are you interested in him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot for Graham. And if I'm in season long, I'm not playing him. I think I can find a better play. But just like Jeff made the point about Gronk being 5,100, like Jimmy Graham is $2,500 on the extended slate if you play Sunday night. And he's even cheaper in the showdown slate somehow at 2,400. So Jimmy Graham all of a sudden is in the punt play category at tight end. So is he safe? Is he a cash play? Absolutely not. But if you're building a GPP and you want to, you're choosing in your last spot between Jimmy Graham or some other scrub tight end, you might as well take the guy with the upside if you're planning to pay all the way down. So there's some upside here based only on the price, but he's banged up, tough matchup against the Vikings, so there's a lot of downside as well.
Another development from the week, Josh Allen set to return from his elbow injury today against the Jaguars. He's been inconsistent this season, not just his play, but staying in the lineup. Julian, could the rookie go off in his first start since week 6?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, the Josh Allen's big game came when everybody was counting the Bills out on the road in Minnesota, and they had that ridiculous offensive explosion. So, sure, maybe he can go off against the Jaguars defense at home. Frankly, I don't really think there are many good plays in this game other than the defenses and the running backs. So I won't be playing any Josh Allen. But could he go off? Sure. He makes for a very long shot GPP play, but the projected total in this game is 37 points. So not a great DFS spot to be targeting especially for the passing game.
Jeff, can you be a little more definitive than the other guests that we have?
Yeah, don't play Josh Allen there. I mean,
thank you.
Look, I mean,
that's pretty much what I said.
He does give a boost to the Bills, like it just as a team. But I mean, it doesn't mean you should go out and play Josh Allen. I mean, I think it does actually put the Bills defense in a better position because they're probably not going to be, giving the ball away in horrible field position for the whole game. Josh Allen did move the ball a little bit. He actually orchestrated a couple upsets when he was starting. So I think it gives a boost to their defense. I think it might even give a boost to like a min price play like Logan Thomas, who's going to be starting a tight end again for Charles Clay. So those are plays you can think about. The defense for sure. Thomas is still a bit of a long shot, but if you really need a cheap tight end, I actually don't mind Logan Thomas. You don't need to roster Josh Allen though. It's just you're just taking away so much upside from your QB spot if you do that. So Julian's right. This is not a game to really dwell on for fantasy play as much.
Thank you, Jeff.
So, Jeff, Melvin Gordon is set to play for the Chargers today. He's managed at least 21 fantasy points in his last 3 outings. He's going to cost you $8,600 and is the second highest priced running back on the slate. We do know he's dealing with some injury stuff. If he goes, are you willing to pay up for him, or do you think they might try to limit his workload?
Oh yeah, this is dicey. I mean, I think I'm okay just fading Melvin Gordon and letting whatever happens. I don't like a player coming in with hamstring and knee issues, and I understand it's an absolutely fantastic spot. The Chargers are over 12-point favorites at home. Normally, if he was healthy, this is just a deploy him and forget it spot, but I just don't like it. I think that the Chargers, if they get up, they will limit him a little bit, and I really think it caps his upside. It doesn't mean he can't get 20 points, but I think a 40-point game, a 35-point game, I just don't know if that's going to happen unless this turns into some kind of shootout, which is probably really unlikely because the Cardinals can't move the ball on offense. So I'm okay fading Melvin Gordon, going to other options like McCaffrey or just going up to Saquon at running back. I don't know. Maybe Julian's isn't as worried about the injuries as me, but I see this as a spot where it's okay to leave Melvin Gordon off the rosters today.
So, Julian, how worried are you about these injuries?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily worried about the injuries slowing him down. I'm more worried, like Jeff said, about the matchup slowing him down. It's a good matchup, but it's going to be a slower paced game, not as much need for him. And I'm worried about the team slowing him down because multiple reports have indicated that they've considered resting Melvin Gordon. So even if he suits up, once the Chargers get up, double digits or something, do they say, all right, let's start handing the ball more consistently to Austin Eckler in this spot? So it's a tough spot. I don't necessarily think Gordon's of a big risk to get re-injured in this game, assuming that he plays, but he could very easily see his workload limited even in a close game or see the Chargers get up bigger in this game and then just say, well, we were considering resting this guy anyway. Why don't we limit his workload now that we have this lead? So there's not many running backs on this slate. So many running backs are off this slate. You've got, Saquon Barkley, James Conner, Christian McCaffrey. Those will be the higher owned guys, really the only other guys to pay up for. So you can get really low ownership on Melvin Gordon if you want to trust his spot here. But for the most part, there's more signs pointing towards him having a lesser game than a strong game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this too. I agree with that because there really aren't many running backs. Like a lot of the high-end guys just aren't on this slate. So on a normal slate, I think it would be easy to go off Melvin Gordon. On this slate, I still think you have to consider getting some exposure to him because there's basically one other option, and they're not necessarily in like huge smash spots either. So I think Melvin Gordon is someone you can get exposure to, maybe even still in a cash game. But for GPPs, like I said, I'm a little bit worried that his upside might be capped today.
We shall see. Jeff, Julian, thank you. We're just getting started here, folks. We'll be back just after this quick break with Chase or Fade.
Tara Lenazak in with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. It seems the Cowboys offense has turned a corner, and the biggest reason why might be their newest player, Amari Cooper. Dallas began the season 3-4, but since surrendering a first-round pick to acquire Cooper from the Raiders, the boys are now 6-5 and at the top of the NFC East standings. Cooper and Dak Prescott are becoming more comfortable together with each passing week. In the Cowboys' Thanksgiving Day win over the Redskins, Cooper led the team in targets, catches, and yards. He also came away with touchdowns on back-to-back third-quarter drives. The plan to pair Cooper and Prescott seems to be working out for the Cowboys, and now they want to lock it in long-term. According to Ian Rappaport, the Cowboys hope to reach contract extensions with wide receiver Amari Cooper and QB Dak Prescott this offseason, and they are planning for it cap-wise. They have some time to work it out. The 24-year-old Cooper is still on his Raiders rookie contract, and Oakland picked up the fifth-year option that ties him to Dallas for next season. So, could Cooper and Prescott be the new Romo and Bryant? It seems this duo could be giving NFC East teams headaches for years to come.
Welcome back to The Sweat. It is a beautiful Sunday morning. And
we're inside.
We are inside, but
Yeah.
we feel like jumping into Chase or Fade. So let's welcome in DK Live's Reed Fowler and Steve Buchanan, plus the fantasy girl herself, Rosalie Michaels.
Steve, what's up? You're first, man. Chase or Fade that Cam Newton is in a great spot to put up 25-plus fantasy points as the Panthers host the Seahawks.
Well, thank you for letting us know that you were inside. I actually really wasn't sure. I was trying to debate that during the break. I mean, look, it's possible, but I have some concerns here. I mean, first one is that the lack of rushing by Newton as of late. He's only, after averaging over 9 rushes in his first 8 games, he's rushed only 4 times total in the last 2 weeks. Now, he exceeded 25 DK fantasy points in one of those games, but that's because he threw 3 touchdowns in that game. I don't know if that's really in the realm of possibilities against the Seattle defense, who hasn't been terrible, but they haven't been great either. Then the loss of Funchess comes into play. That actually probably helps him more because now nobody's going to be dropping any balls that he has, so his completion rate is probably going to go through the roof in this game here. So I actually feel like, if anything, that probably helps the Seahawks defensively because they don't have to worry about Funchess at this point. So I think it's going to be close. I'm going to go with the fade on this one, but I think it's going to be real close.
Hi, Reed. 25-plus for Cam Newton, Chase or Fade?
Yeah, I'm going to fade this as well. I think Steve's right. If you look at these two teams too, right, I think this is going to be run first. I think they do feature Christian McCaffrey. We know what the Seahawks do. They run the most plays on the ground, right, around 32 per game, which slows this game down quite a bit. Like, Cam has thrown multiple touchdowns all season except for week 1. So we see that floor is there. But at the same time, for him to get to this number, we need to see that rushing ability. And I think with Christian McCaffrey being in such a smash spot, I do think that they feature him as opposed to Cam doing it. Look, he's been close. He's been close to this number, but we see that his yards now are going down. His yards per attempt are going down because they want to get him more used to this. And I've said it all season that these small intermediate passes is really where Cam Newton is starting to flourish. We want to get that confidence up. But to me, this is going to be a Christian McCaffrey game.
Rosalie, good morning. Chase or Fade?
Good morning. I agree with the guys. I'm fading this. Yeah, you know what? I don't expect it to be a bad game for Cam, but like the guys said, his rushing it's totally different. He has not had a rushing touchdown since week 8. They've finally done what we've all been asking of the Carolina Panthers offense and have put the rushing game in McCaffrey's hands. So, yeah, you know what? He'll probably be around 20 points, but 25 is going to be difficult. You look at, they gave up 21 points to Rodgers, 21 points to Goff just in the past 2 weeks. So I don't expect a huge game, but safe floor, but not quite the ceiling we're used to out of Cam Newton in those early games.
Next up, guys, the Browns at Bengals will turn into a shootout and be the highest scoring game on the main Sunday slate. Now, keep in mind, the current total is just 46, which is the 8th highest on the slate. So are you chasing or fading this, Rosalie?
Fading it. You just can't trust the Bengals offense without A.J. Green in there. They look totally different than at the beginning of the year, where they were one of the best passing offenses and really were scoring a lot of points. You know what? Cincinnati now is 28th in rushing yards, 20th in passing yards, and 12th in points per game. The Browns are going to be running the Chubb train pretty much the whole game and eating up the clock. So I don't think that this is one of the highest scoring games. You've got Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Green Bay, Minnesota, or even maybe Indy and Miami, most of that being Indianapolis, being a higher score.
Yeah, Reed, it's now official. A.J. Green is out. So are you chasing or fading this?
Yeah, I'm fading this as well. Like, there are a few things that we can, predict. One being Tampa Bay's defense being really bad. And now you have Nick Mullins and Jameis Winston in that San Francisco-Tampa Bay game. That's up to 54, right? We can really predict how that comes out. And there's, again, we don't know, right? We don't know with Miami and the Colts, and with, like Rosalie was saying, with Cincinnati and Cleveland, they could really feature the run here because both defenses are bad against the run. Now, both teams obviously allow the least amount of plays on the other side or opposing team, so they run pretty fast offenses. But at the same time, who are you going to trust, right, really on that? And with the whole Hugh Jackson, there's so many things up in the air with this game. To say that it goes that's the highest, I'd rather really put my stake in either Indianapolis, but more so in that San Francisco-Tampa Bay game because both defenses not good.
Steve, what do you think? Chase or fade?
I mean, I think the Browns can put up the points, but obviously I don't know about the Bengals like everyone else is kind of saying here. I mean, without Green, Dalton is averaging 182 passing yards per game and with only a 55% completion rate. Tyler Boyd has only caught 46% of his targets in those games. And there's really not a ton of matchups for the Bengals that you really want to get excited about and exploit. So while I think the Browns will win this match, I mean, I don't have a lot of high hopes for the Bengals in this spot. So I don't see how that would end up being the highest scoring game on the slate. So I'm going to fade that one as well.
Yeah, and David Njoku is active today for the Browns. That should help the Brownies today. All right, Reed, let's go to you here. Beat up Eagles secondary right now. So Odell Beckham Jr. in line to score the most fantasy points on the slate. Chase or fade that?
Yeah, I'm going to contradict myself because this is one of my favorite plays.
That's what you
on
do.
The slate, but I'm going to take the field. If you're going to say he's the highest, he's going to be the highest guy. I'm going to take the rest of the field. But here's the argument that he does. Like you mentioned, that secondary is banged up. They're starting two guys that they signed off the practice squad earlier this month, and a guy that they signed an undrafted free agent earlier this month. And so you look at that secondary, it's completely bad. But Saquon Barkley is another guy that is really in a smash spot. Philadelphia's defense is not good. Odell Beckham, outside of last week, saw 11 targets, right, and scored in 4 straight games. And so when you think about all those things, you think, yeah, but he also has Eli Manning, right? That's the one caveat that, if anything, right, how can this guy, his production is tied, like any receiver's production is tied to the quarterback. I will say that he gets close. I love him in this spot, but if you're giving me the field, I'll take the field.
Steve, big day for OBJ. Chase or fade?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to chase this one. I mean, honestly, I think the Giants can outright win this game. Keep that one on the record. I mean, the Eagles secondary is so incredibly beat up right now that they had wide receivers acting as cornerbacks during practice this week. That's how bad it's been at this juncture. I mean, even last week when Beckham only had 4 targets, he caught all of them, had over 18 yards per catch on all those catches, scored a touchdown, 18.5 DK fantasy points. So even in the limited opportunities against, a secondary that didn't have wide receivers during practice doing that job, he can still get it done. I mean, obviously, you think that they're going to focus on him here, and that's definitely something that could happen, and that could end up, suppressing the fantasy points that he can score. But he's just so talented. They have absolutely nobody on that field right now to cover anybody. You have to realistically think that Odell has to be up there. But I do agree with Reed that Saquon Barkley could also be up there as well. I think it's just going to be a high-scoring game all around. I think that's a game you definitely want to target.
Steve, when you sign up to do the show, everything is on the record, sir. Just so you know.
Thanks, and you're also inside.
Yeah, that's
Rosalie.
true. I can confirm.
Rosalie, chase or fade, OBJ, big game.
Yeah, I think Steve needs to remember, hey, you know what? I like it when wide receivers play cornerback. It feels like high school football again. That's a good time watching them play both sides of the ball. Yeah, you know what? I'm fading this because the last 2 games, the Giants have had under 200 passing yards, and that's against the bad pass defenses of both San Francisco and Tampa Bay. And they won both of those games, which they had only won 1 game before that. So they do that on the back of Saquon Barkley. This is Saquon's team now. OBJ is there. Yes, he's totally talented, but they've already said today that they are going to feed Saquon today. He had over 200 all-purpose yards and a rushing touchdown in week 6 against this Eagles team. So Saquon's going to have more fantasy points than OBJ today. Absolutely.
On the record.
On the record. Hot Take City. All right. Thanks for the help, crew. Take a break, but please don't go far because we do have the latest inactive news and updates when the sweat returns.
Pat Mayo here with an exciting new way to heat up your Sundays this football season. DraftKings has teamed up with Buffalo Wild Wings to bring you a fantasy experience like no other. Blazing Fantasy Football, a new free game only available inside Buffalo Wild Wings restaurants. Want to win free wings for a year, game tickets, Buffalo Wild Wings gift cards, or Blazin' Rewards points? Here's how. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings, download the Blazin' Rewards app, and join. Already a member? Not a problem. Just log in and fire up the app. Click or tap the Blazin' Fantasy Football icon, join a contest, draft your lineup, and get ready to compete against rivals in all Buffalo Wild Wings restaurants. Blaze your way up the leaderboard by drafting who you think will be the top 8 players, including kickers. Best part? You've got a chance to really rack up the score with your blazing pick. It's worth double points, so choose wisely. Don't just wing it. Draft your team in one of Sunday's 4 contests before each half of the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. Eastern games. Then, grab some wings, sit back, and watch your team light up the leaderboard. Come back every Sunday for new contests each week. DraftKings and Buffalo Wild Wings, the right stack for Sundays.
Okay, before we toss it over to Pat Mayo, here is the latest updates on who is in, who is out. Let's have a look.
Yeah,
here I am looking at the screen and not paying attention to what's going on. So inactives for today. I'll take the inactives, you take the actives.
Green.
A.J. Green, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garçon, Alex Collins, and Charles Clay. Inactive.
And we have our actives, Tom Brady, Gronk, and Sony Michel. We got Doug Baldwin, Torrey Smith, Robbie Anderson, David Njoku, and Deshaun Jackson. Also some other news from the top of the show.
Yes.
Josh Allen is set to start for the Bills for the first time since week 6 when he sustained that UCL injury. And Melvin Gordon is a go for the Chargers against Arizona.
Gronk's playing, yes. Devin Funchess not expected to play for Carolina today. And then looking ahead to Monday night, Marcus Mariota will start for Tennessee on Monday Night Football.
MNF. Now let's toss it over to Pat Mayo in the PME studios. Take it away, please, Pat.
What up, everybody? I'm here in the PME studios. Pat Mayo, obviously. Gary and Thorn is here with me. We're going to be talking through some of the line movement and some preferred plays from at least Gary and I so far today. I do want to let everyone know that odds and lines are subject to change. See website for actual odds if you or anyone you know has a gambling problem and wants help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Anything you just like right off the hop? There's been a lot of line movement.
Carolina.
They're down too. They opened at 4. They're down to 3, 2.5 in some spots. I like Carolina as well.
I would be smashing at 2.5.
The big move that I see this week, and maybe, behind you, there's a narrative street sign, and maybe this is one that's, I think it's like a 70% against the spread winner, at least historically over the past 10 years. West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast and playing at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Throws their biorhythms way out of whack. They're just not used to it. We have 3 of those this week. Oakland is in Baltimore. Seattle is in Carolina. That's a really long trip as well. The other one is San Francisco to Tampa Bay. Put those three together. And somehow, down Marquise Goodwin, down Pierre Garçon, this line opens at 3.5 to 1.5 now. Everyone's betting on slick Nick Mullins.
It's surprising. I mean, I guess going back to last week, we can only remember so much. We are goldfish as people. But, when Eli Manning tears up your defense, it doesn't do a whole lot of kind will for your confidence in that particular team. But I'm with you. I feel like taking the home team there, especially with the team coming from the West. Of the three, though, like I said, I just think Carolina's in a spot where they've been so amazing at home so far this season. Their average margin of victory at home is double digits. It just seems like a really good spot. And I would say they're not getting, especially at 2.5 now, I don't think they're getting nearly enough credit for, I would say, how much better a team they are than Seattle. And I think that they're going to be in a position to put Seattle in a spot they don't thrive in. If you make Seattle start to throw the football, that's not what they want to do. So I really like Carolina. And I would say that in a similar spot, although it is a road favorite, I kind of feel the same way about Pittsburgh.
I do. Pittsburgh had their bad game last week.
Exactly.
They don't play the two bad games in a row.
They had their foot off the gas last week. It's not going to happen this week. And historically, when we talk about narratives, Roethlisberger, the road thing is real, sure, but it's the 1 p.m. road thing. He tends to be fine in primetime and 4 p.m. games on the road. And I just don't think Denver's all that good. They tend to be losing at the half constantly.
Sneaky thing about Denver, you can run all over them. And that really mitigates the one thing they do really well. They're extremely good pass rush.
Yeah.
So first half in that game, -2.5.
Also, the fact the Steelers just have one of the better offensive lines in football.
True.
And Denver's fantastic.
And
but
sneakily, people haven't, everyone's just having a splurge fest here with the Saints. So the Saints defense has gotten a lot better as the course of the seasons went along. Obviously, we know how good that their defense is or their offense is, and they don't take weeks off. They've now covered 9 games in a row. The Steelers kind of mixing and matching. They're sort of like Saints North, though. Their offense is awesome, and that defense is looking better by the week.
It's fantastic. And they always say the best, or some people say, I guess, the best defense is a good offense. It's kind of true. The Saints lead the league in time of possession per drive. As long as your team has the football and your quarterback is Drew Brees, the other team's probably not going to score.
Pace is something we look for over-unders a lot. 2 of the 10 highest paced teams in football are squaring off. Do you know where?
I do.
Where?
New England.
No, it's at MetLife.
Oh, is it at MetLife?
It's in Jersey. The Patriots and Jets.
Man, what would that line be if it was in New England?
46.5 is the over-under in this game. Do you really think that the Patriots are going to I know Josh McCown's playing. I don't care.
The Bills just scored 41 points on the Jets. I think the Patriots could do something similar.
And if they do that, the Jets just need a touchdown and boom, we're covering.
Well, like we talked about, there's such a high.
I like the Jets and the points.
There's such a high level of variance to Josh McCown's game. We know it can be awful.
You know who he's bad against? The number 2 defense by DVOA.
Exactly.
He's not good against them. Maybe against the crappy Patriots defense, he can be fine.
They can't produce a pass rush. I think, look, it's going to be a lot of garbage time stuff, but the Jets are going to be throwing the football ad nauseum for the second half of this game. That game is going to get over this number.
We're big on fading the public here.
Yes.
I mean, most of the time it works. Of course, it doesn't work every single time. Once you see an outrageous amount of money on one side of a game, no matter if it's the total cash, the amount of tickets, the amount of spread picks, there's a few games lining up like that this week. Number 1, the Patriots. 83% of the money, 93% of betting tickets, 81% of spread bets are on the Patriots this week.
I could really see the Jets back.
It's at plus 12.5 now.
A backdoor cover is very on the table.
The other one is the Chargers. That's up to 14 now. -14, the Chargers at home against the Cardinals. As I mentioned on my show, which you can watch every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be live on Monday morning too, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So check that out, please. Please, people, go check it out. Also, smash the like button while you're here. It goes a long way. Chargers, even at -14, 74% of the money, 84% of the picks. And actually, people are now at the 14. Some people are leaning towards the Cardinals spread. But they just covered this number in Kansas City. And I hate to tell you, Kansas City's better than the Chargers. Not to say they can't cover 14, but the Cardinals aren't terrible. And they have a good pass rush.
Yes, they do. But when I looked at this game earlier in the week when it was 12, I did like the Chargers because one of the things, as you mentioned, is the Cardinals, the best part of their team by far is that pass rush. They have 33 sacks so far this season.
Sort of like how Folgers is the best part of waking up.
That's true. The Chargers rarely allow Phillip Rivers to get dirty. He's only been sacked 1.2 times per game this season. That's among the top 5 lowest rates in football. And you're also talking about a team like the Chargers gain the most net yards per play of any team in the NFL. And you've got a Cardinals team that's averaging just slightly above 200 yards of total offense per game on the road. Maybe at 14, this has now become a stay away for me. But I like them at 12. I don't mind them at 14, but obviously I'm a little less inclined with the movement we've seen.
The Colts spread has dropped back to 9 as we speak. It went from 8 this morning to 8.5. Now it's back to 9. 84% of the money on the Colts in this game. I picked the Colts to cover as a stay away bet, but a lot of people are on the Dolphins spread, though, is the one thing.
Yeah. Look, I said this on your show earlier. I see this game and the Patriots game as very similar types of games. You've got the Jets and the Dolphins who really like to be methodical with their offense, and then you've got them facing the 1 and 2 teams in terms of pace. There's going to be a lot of plays in each of these games. I mean, I'd be lying if I said Tannehill was some, a savior at quarterback. Do I think he's a significant upgrade to Osweiler? I do. Backdoor covers on the table, but I would still take the Colts if you pressed me. 2
things to look for before we get out of here that you always generally want to fade. It's never a good idea. Publicly backed underdogs.
Yep.
When the whole world is on an underdog, you know who they're on this week? The Giants and the Seahawks. The peoples love them, the Giants and the Seahawks. They're publicly backed underdogs. Usually a good stay away spot. I actually like the Eagles and I like the Panthers, so I'll just be on the other side of those games. But like publicly backed dogs, never a spot you want to be.
Yeah, I'm not riding this Giants wave with everyone.
All right, Gary and Thorn, we'll be back later on in the show to give you, what are you giving us?
Fades.
Fades, the best fades of the week. This will do it for me. You can check out the Pat Mayo Experience, all the audio versions, and up on the DraftKings YouTube page, on the Facebook page, the DK Live app, wherever you want to be. So that'll do it for me. Follow me on Twitter if you got a question at the PME. Like The Sweat, because it's a fantastic show. I'll throw it back to Jessie and Glash of the Titans.
Pat, I mentioned Clash of the Titans to my family on Thanksgiving, and they thought it was tremendous. So no one cares, really, at the end of the day, because we are trying to set lineups earlier in the week. Yes, no one cares. There it is. Adam Levitan and Reed Fowler joined me for Papa John's Make Your Pick. Enjoy. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Glasheen, along with DK Live's Adam Levitan and Reed Fowler. They're here to help you make your pick for DraftKings Team Pick'em, presented by Papa John's. You get 25% off any regular menu price orders by using the promo code DK25. We're targeting 3 games in Week 12, guys, with interesting storylines. The Seahawks are vying for a playoff spot, and they're in Carolina to take on the 6-4 Panthers. Reed, the Panthers went for 2 last week, but failed, so it resulted in a loss to the Lions. Can Cam and company rebound?
I think Seattle is going to take this one, in my opinion. Look, I know traveling west to east is not good. Seattle gets a couple extra days of rest, obviously playing on that Thursday night at home against Green Bay. But honestly, if you look at Carolina, I'm not convinced they're this team that belongs at 6-4. Like, they've beaten Tampa Bay. I get that. They've beaten other teams that really don't give me that trust that they're a team that they can beat. Seattle is better than we expect. And if you look at Carolina, they're averaging 20 points in their losses. If you take out that 52 burger that Pittsburgh put up on them, the teams that go up against them average about 20 points per game. So in these slow-paced games, which Seattle plays, I think Seattle takes this one.
How about you, Levitan?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Panthers here. I think the biggest home field, arguably one of the biggest home fields in the entire NFL, goes to the Seahawks. And then we see them step up and play really well on that Thursday game against the Packers, come back and get the win. I think going on the road across the country, as Reed mentioned, for this game is a big, big difference. And the Panthers' backs are really against the wall here. I mean, after they lost that game going for 2 up in Detroit, they really, really need this win if they're going to make the playoffs. So I think the Panthers come out focused and at home get the win.
All right, well, speaking of cross-country trips, the Steelers are going to go to Mile High and face the Denver Broncos. Both teams are coming off wins, Denver beating the Chargers and the Steelers outlasting the Jaguars. Levy, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's kind of against me to go with one of these road favorites, traveling and everything, but I've got to stick with the Steelers here. Their defense is just so much better than people realize from a run stuffing perspective, from a cornerback play perspective, and really from a pass rush perspective too. I mean, they're so strong there. And then we know when push comes to shove, even in a really tough spot down in Jacksonville, and I thought Jacksonville would win that game, as Ben Roethlisberger ended up getting them the win at the end. So I think the Steelers just have way too much talent and scheme here.
Reed?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at Denver again this week at home. And when you look at these guys, like Levy mentioned, home underdogs, these guys tend to play up. Like they played against a division team that in the Chargers that we kind of thought, okay, Denver can eke away this win and can squeak away this win, and they did. If you look at all the key statistical categories, like Pittsburgh on defense and offense owns most of those. But if you look at this Denver team, that defense is playing a lot better. Like that rush defense is suspect, but that pass defense and that secondary with Chris Harris, these guys are playing up over their average of what they've done this season. So I'm going to take Denver in this. I think Pittsburgh did spend a lot of emotional equity. They're traveling now back, I guess, east to west. And so I'm taking that and taking Denver here.
All right, we'll get you guys out on this. The way the standings look, Packers-Vikings has the feel of a make-or-break game for each team. So, Reed, these guys tied back in week 2. I want you to pick a winner, please. No ties.
Yeah, I'm going with the Vikings here. Look, these teams, like you mentioned, they always play each other very, very hard. And much like Levy talked about in the beginning with Carolina, I think the Vikings are also in this must-win. Like Green Bay did also lose to an NFC divisional woe in Seattle, and so their backs up are against the wall as well. But if you look at defensively, the Vikings and what they're able to do, right, their pass rush, it's just to me in the sense of what you're able to do now against Green Bay in terms of that secondary. Look, you attack these corners, right? You attack them with your wide receivers in Adam Thielen, in Stephon Diggs. I think they slow the ball down. I think Minnesota has a lot more success running the ball against this team as opposed to Chicago. So I think we'll see a lot of Dalvin Cook. I think we'll see a lot of these skill players. And Minnesota's got to win, something in them.
How about you, Levitan?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with the Vikings here. I mean, I don't know. The Packers have one good player in Aaron Rodgers, and they have one of the worst coaching staffs in the league, and they have one of the worst defenses in the league. So, I mean, Aaron Rodgers can compensate for a lot, as we've seen this year, can compensate for everything here. So I think that the Vikings with a more well-rounded team, and still, I don't think they're proven this year that they're not very good either, but I think a more well-rounded team gets it done here.
All right, thanks, guys. That'll do it for this week's edition of Make Your Pick for DraftKings Team Pick'em, presented by Papa John's. For Adam and Reed, I'm Brendan. Talk to you next week. You really like that shirt.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody.
You don't care.
Again, I do care.
Okay.
We are taking you up to kick off on Week 12 Sunday. We need those anchors to build lineups for the main slate. So Julian Edlow and Jeff Ulrich, don't mind helping us or you out. We're going to let you guys do the thing.
Oh, Julian shook his head. I'm nervous now for a
he
second. Jeff, who are you building your lineups around today?
Okay, I just want to say that Reed is wearing a parka right now, so I'm a little distracted. But look, see, I was
Oh,
lying.
take the jacket off, you wimp.
What's going on? Is AC's on? I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But we mentioned that there's not that much certainty at the top end of the RB position today. Some guys on the bye, injured, whatever. I like going for value, and I like going to Marlon Mack today. And I think people are overlooking him a little bit. Obviously, Gus Edwards in a big spot, Josh Adams getting love, but Mack is very affordable too. And the Colts are over 7-point favorites. And at this point, I mean, if you're sleeping on the Colts, you're really sleeping, because they've put up 29 or more points in 5 straight games. This offense is absolutely humming. The Dolphins are a bottom 5 run team. They've been getting smoked. Running backs have been putting up like over 120 yards on them in like 15 carries. Mack is still seeing 60% of the snaps in 3 straight games. Yes, he's ceding a little bit of pass game work, but he's still the preferred red zone carry guy there. I think this is a multi-score spot for Mack, and at 5,500, if he's going to be lower owned than Gus Edwards, I like anchoring all my lineups with him. I think the upside here is just too big to ignore.
We ought to put a horseshoe on that polo of yours. It does have the Colt blue and the white collar.
There you go. There you go.
Julian, you awake? What do you got? Who's your anchor?
I'm awake, Glash. I do like the pick on Marlon Mack there, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson here at $5,700. I know it's kind of a trendy pick. Everybody's going that way, but the floor that you get with his rushing is just too much upside to ignore at this price point. If there was a running back at $5,700 that carried 26 times for 119 yards, I believe, last week, we would all be talking about how we have to roster this running back, and you get essentially that with all of the passing production that Jackson can provide against a terrible Raiders defense for just $5,700. I don't think the performance against the Bengals on the ground was a fluke. The Bengals and Raiders are the 2 worst teams in terms of rushing yards allowed per game in the NFL. So Jackson's in nearly an identical spot in terms of matchups. So I think he's going to produce a similar line on the ground than he did last week. And maybe he improves as a passer. He scored 20 DraftKings points without even reaching the end zone last week. So I just think there's no downside to playing Lamar Jackson.
I like it. He was winning the Heisman last year.
All right, team. We'd also like a defense/special teams unit that's the best play for today. I hope that's not too much to ask from you, Jeff.
First of all, I can't end this segment without taking a dig at Julian. I mean, I think he should just play Russell Wilson at that price and lower it. But whatever. Well, yeah, I'll just throw that out there. I like the Colts defense, too. I mean, Brandon.
Here we go again.
Brandon. It's Brandon.
Brandon.
Here we go
Brandon.
again. Yeah,
It's Brandon.
Put the horseshoe on the polo, why don't you?
I got the Colts blue on. So, I mean, again, I think this is a team that's getting a little bit overlooked. 5 sacks last week. Their pass rush was a little bit banged up, whatever. They slowed down, but they bounced back last week. It's the team that's top 5 in turnovers, takeaways as well in the league. And they're going up against the Miami offense that does not score a lot of points, that turns the ball over, and they're getting Ryan Tannehill, might not be 100%. I don't look at Tannehill as someone that he returns and all of a sudden you have to fade the Dolphins. I actually think this is a good spot. A mediocre to below average quarterback coming off an injury. You know, he's going to be rusty at the very least, and he's possibly still banged up. I think the Colts at home are just rolling right now. I think at under 3K, they're a very good option if you're going to not pay up for Baltimore or the Chargers or something like that. So I really like the Colts offense. Again, you can just stack it with Marlon Mack because this is a great correlation for it. So.
All right, Julian, what about you?
I'm sorry. I missed that we were doing off-the-wall picks here. I thought this was slate approved. They're supposed to be safe, and that's why I'm playing the Bills defense for $2,700. I think a lot of people might look at this matchup and try and jam the Jaguars defense into their lineup for $4,000 when, I mean, obviously targeting against the Bills defensively generally works, but I think the Bills might be in a better spot. I think the Bills can win this game against the Jaguars at home. Jacksonville's just been so terrible offensively, and now what are they? I think they've 6-game losing streak, and they've failed to cover a spread during that 6-game losing streak. So this is a good spot for Buffalo. They're way too underpriced at $2,700 just because they're the Bills. I think that Jacksonville's offense is really spiraling downward and in a very tough spot on the road against Buffalo. So eat the chalk here, go with the Buffalo D, hope that people take the other side and pay up for Jacksonville.
All right, terrific. Thank you, gentlemen. Top stacks of the day are on the way.
Tara Lemazak in with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. It's going to take more than a couple of injuries to stop Jimmy Graham. Not only is the Packers tight end dealing with a broken left thumb he suffered in last week's loss to the Seahawks, but he's also listed with a knee injury ahead of the team's Sunday night showdown with the Vikings. It was originally believed Graham would miss significant time with that broken thumb, but now reports indicate the 9-year vet will attempt to play through it. Coach Mike McCarthy said on Friday that Graham caught the ball fine during drills despite wearing the heavy wrap on his hand. For fantasy owners, the Graham-Rodgers connection hasn't been as exciting as you thought it was going to be. In 3 of the last 4 games, Graham hasn't had more than 1 reception. On the season, he has only 34 catches for 452 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, even if Graham does see the field on Sunday night, most of the chances will likely go to guys like Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Plus, if Randall Cobb, who has been dealing with a hamstring injury, is good to go, that's just another mouth for Aaron Rodgers to feed.
Alrighty, thanks for that, Terrell. Stack time. Top stacks for the Sunday main slate, courtesy of me and Jessie.
Not quite. Reed Fowler and fantasy girl Rosalie Michaels tell us which team's players they're stacking. So, Reed, you have a lot of answers here, I think.
What a puffiness,
and you look really cold.
Yeah. So I'm outside right now. I'm not inside like Glasheen is. You know, we put the analysts outside. I need to be in Arizona with Rosalie. It's freezing in here. Anyway, back to the stack. I'm liking Marlon Mack and Andrew Luck, like Mack has been talked about. I'll leave it to Ulrich to just blow up my spot in both of these instances where I was going to come in and make fun of you with your inside joke. But yeah, Marlon Mack is someone that I'm really looking forward to this Sunday. I mean, look, the Dolphins, Marlon Mack in terms of what he's able to do, and the Dolphins just give up a ton of yards. We've seen Lamar Miller do it. We've seen guys like Frank Gore, Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones. All of these guys against Miami's defense have performed really well, 100-plus yards. We've seen multiple touchdowns from these guys. Miami's linebackers can't stop someone. If you look at Andrew Luck, this guy's performing really well. Look, he was on pace for the most attempts in a single season. They dialed back that because of Marlon Mack's success. Over the last 3 games, 22 for 27 on average, 273 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So this guy is playing at a high clip. That offensive line hasn't allowed a sack in quite some time, but that's a feat for Andrew Luck. So play the Colts against Miami. That'll be my last thing I say.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure. Last thing you'll say today. Stay warm. Rosalie, who are you stacking? Sorry.
Yeah, oh, that's okay. No problem. I'm just hanging out here laughing at Reed. He makes me laugh a lot.
Oh, Reed.
Looks aren't everything, Rosalie. I'm sorry.
I thought you were done talking, Reed.
So, I love Marlon Mack just like Reed does this week, but I don't know that Andrew Luck's going to get as many points, but you know who's going to get a lot of points this week? That is Jameis Winston. But Jameis Winston going up, we've already talked about that this is going to be the highest scoring game on the slate, right? It's the over-unders at 54.5. San Francisco gives up the 6th most fantasy points to QBs, the 5th most to wide receivers. So I got to go Mike Evans with that stack. The thing that we worry about with Jameis Winston is turnovers. But thankfully, San Francisco is ranked dead last in turnovers. So we may actually see a game here with 4 touchdowns out of Jameis without a turnover. So that would be nice. You know what? 5th most points per game that San Francisco gives up to opposing offenses. Tampa Bay is still number 1 in passing yards a game, number 8 in points per game. Mike Evans should be free to run the majority of his routes against Witherspoon, who's the league's 5th worst cornerback. So I see him getting a lot of touchdowns today. He's the big play guy. I think this is a big play game for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
All right. Now we want a contrarian stack from each of you. Reed, get a little sneaky for us. Sneaky.
Yeah, so it's gonna. I'm like sweating in this, but look, it's gonna be.
Oh, now he's warm.
Nick Vannett. Look, this game is going to be it's going to be hard to figure out, right? But if we think that passing attack is going to flourish for Seattle, like Seattle, despite running the ball quite a bit, they've scored 76% of their touchdowns through the air. And Russell Wilson, we've all seen it, right? He's scoring quite a bit of touchdowns through the air. Nick Vannett, you look at that tight end spot, Carolina is first for opposing tight ends, giving up 17.4 DK fantasy points. Last 3 weeks, 63% of the snaps, 16 routes run on average. You saw 8 targets in week 9. Followed up those 2 the last couple of weeks with only 2 targets, but he's seeing red zone targets, at least 1 in the last 3 games. So if you want to take a flyer, it's only going to cost you $8,300 if you roster both. I think a lot of people are going Lamar Jackson, like Julian was saying. So if you want to fade that and pivot off to Russell Wilson, this guy's going to be about 3 or 5% owned. Nick Vannett's going to be like 1% owned. So if you want to get that contrarian stack and save so you can go up, maybe to roster the Saquons and the OBJs, I think this is a good contrarian stack.
Rosalie, sneaky stack, please.
Well, it's funny, when I made this pick, I thought it was sneaky, but it doesn't seem to be so sneaky anymore. But I think that Reed might be sweating because of that contrarian pick. That's that's a tough one. The net is hard, only 2 targets. So, but yeah, I'm going with my contrarian stack, which may not be as contrarian anymore, but I'm going Jackson and the Baltimore D. You know what? The Oakland defense gives up the 2nd most rushing yards on the year, 152 rushing yards to Arizona last week, and 3 passing touchdowns to Josh Rosen. So there he is, Lamar Jackson. He's both the running back and the quarterback, so can score a lot of points there. And then, of course, the Oakland offense just scores the 3rd least amount of points. We all know how good that Baltimore D is. So maybe it's not quite as contrarian as I thought, but still a good pick.
Thank you. And Reed, stay warm. Steve Buchanan is going to bring the heat. Speaking of warmth, he's going to bring the heat with Put Up Your Bukes next.
Pat Mayo here with Sunday's blazing game day picks presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Only 2 teams on bye who get the entire week to enjoy time with their families. But with 3 games on Thanksgiving, this makes it one of the thinnest Sunday slates of the season. It's 10 games to choose from. So let's lock in a running back right away, fire up some Christian McCaffrey against the Seahawks. It's always worrisome when you have to pay such a high price tag with McCaffrey only to watch Cam Newton pilfer all his touchdowns. But them's the breaks. With McCaffrey, you're getting a solid matchup against a bottom 3rd Seahawks rush D, basically the only running back who plays almost 100% of his team snaps, and one of the few that is game script independent. Whether Carolina's winning or losing, McCaffrey's gonna remain involved. Just hope this is the game where he seizes those scoring opportunities. Then, you're looking at potentially the highest scoring player on the slate. At receiver, really tough to veer away from Keenan Allen right now. Working primarily out of the slot, Allen likely won't see much of Patrick Peterson. And since complaining about his role after the London game against Tennessee, he's averaging over 10 targets and 7 catches a game in his past 3, finding pay dirt in the last 2, and seeing over 30% of Phillip Rivers' passes come in his direction. Allen has always had a built-in floor, but this newfound consistency and volume has unlocked a substantial amount of upside. Finally, at quarterback, roll the dice and go with Jameis Winston against the Niners. You can always chuck 4 picks and gets benched. It happens. But few quarterbacks see the volume Jameis does. Even in that game where he got benched against the Bengals, he still had 35 passing attempts. In his 2 full starts, he put the ball up 41 and 52 times, breaching 365 yards in each. It's worth the risk. Those are the blazing game day picks presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm Pat Mayo.
Thanks, Mayo. Now, in case you forgot who we are, I'm Jessie Coffield. He's Brendan Glasheen. You're watching The Sweat. We're dissecting Sunday, Week 12 in the NFL, taking you up to the 1 p.m. kickoffs.
Yeah, inactives for today. A.J. Green, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garcon, Alex Collins, and Charles Clay.
Now for the actives, we got Tom Brady, Gronk, Sony Michel, New England looking good, Doug Baldwin, Torrey Smith, Robbie Anderson, David Njoku, and Deshaun Jackson. They are all active, and we have some early morning reports. Ryan Tannehill returning as starting QB for the Dolphins. Rob Gronkowski, as we said, good to go. Jimmy Graham in for the Packers despite that broken thumb report.
Couple more. Josh Allen, he is set to start against the Jaguars. Melvin Gordon's going to play for the Chargers today against the Cardinals. Devin Funchess not expected to play this afternoon for the Panthers. And for Monday night, Marcus Mariota is going to start against the Texans.
Okay, so housekeeping is done now. Let's put up our Bukes with DK Live. Steve Buchanan. Steve going to give us his 3 plays that he likes and the DraftKings point predictions. Julian Edlow going to weigh in after each one. I hope this doesn't come to blows.
All right, bud. Your first pick, please.
Yeah, obviously it's been the Marlon Mack hour because everyone's been talking about him.
You got your Colts colors on, too.
Yeah, looked at my notes, whatever. So whatever. I have him down for 18 DK fantasy points against the Dolphins. I mean, look, Mac's been a bust the last 2 weeks, but I mean, that should have been expected. He faces the Jaguars and the Titans, 2 of the best run defenses in the league. Now he gets one of the worst with the Dolphins. They've allowed over 100 rushing yards 7 times this season, 9 rushing touchdowns scored. Mack is also accounting for 43% of the Colts' red zone rushing opportunities. Take the $500 discount that he gets from last week. Get him in your lineup. Don't even think twice about it. Just put him in there, help save some salary, and get those 18 DK fantasy points.
Oh, the Black Friday sale continues on Sunday. How about you, Julian? What do you think of that pick?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to fight Steve here, but I would basically be fighting the entire show on this pick. Marlon Mack is a very good play. The only thing that I can say is, like, Gus Edwards probably will be more popular at 4,400, but I think he might be got more points per dollar. You've got Josh Adams for the Eagles at 3,800. That's a really nice running back value. Matt Breida at 67, I think he is. Going up against the Bucs. He had a big game against the Giants before the bye. So there's a lot of good mid to cheap priced running back plays on this slate, which is nice given all the big names that we don't have. But yeah, if you're sprinkling guys in your lineup, I think Marlon Mack has to be one of those guys. Look at what he did. He's coming off those 2 bad games, but look at what he did in the 2 games before that against the Raiders. He had a huge game against the Raiders, who are a similar run defense to the Dolphins. So yeah, I do like the spot for Marlon Mack.
All right, Steve, pick number 2, please.
By the way, Julian, I noticed you're in a different background. Did you have to change apartments after all the fades you make on my plays and keep losing money?
Oh!
I moved into a mansion after that.
Oh, it's
that backfired.
Yeah, calm down, Glash. Okay, you're only here like once a week. All right, let's go talk
Okay.
about Willie Snead for 15 DK fantasy points against the Raiders. Look, of the 19 pass attempts that Jackson made last week, 8 of them went to Willie Snead. He responded with 5 catches for 51 yards in their matchup against the Bengals. This week, Snead has an excellent individual matchup against Nick Nelson of the Raiders. He's been covering the slot lately, and he's been doing an absolutely atrocious job. He's been targeted against 10 times, allowed 7 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think Snead could be a real sneaky play here this week. He's dirt cheap at 4,400, so I really like Snead in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, 5 catches for 51 yards with Lamar Jackson last week. So he was definitely better than Crabtree and John Brown, who each caught 1 ball apiece. But
that doesn't take much.
Yeah, I can't trust this spot for Willie Snead. Crabtree and Brown could easily bounce back. They're more talented receivers in this matchup. And like I mentioned, the Raiders ranked 31st in the NFL against the rush. This is going to be Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards on the ground shredding this defense. Obviously, there's going to be some passing of the ball, but Snead is the third guy there. I would trust the 2 other receivers to have more of a bounce-back game versus Willie Snead continuing and upping his production that he had in just this one game with Jackson. So Snead is a fade for me.
Okay. How about Curtis Samuel? Is that the next one for you, Steve?
Yeah, thanks for the spoiler alert. Yeah, I have him down for 13 DK fantasy points against the Seahawks today. I mean, he's been getting a decent amount of work with Torrey Smith out of the lineup. Now, Smith is likely back in today, but Devin Funchess is out. So Funchess and all his drops will not be affecting the Carolina offense this week. Look, the Seahawks have just been roasted by opposing receivers as of late. No less than 177 receiving yards in 4 straight weeks now from opposing receivers. Samuels, who said get a good amount of work with Devin Funchess out of the lineup. Funchess has been getting a ton of targets, but there's targets to be had here with him out of the lineup at 3,800. Again, he just feels like a really, really good value play and a good matchup that really on paper doesn't look like a slam dunk spot, but I think this is a lot better for the Panthers than people are giving them credit for. So I like Samuel a lot for 13 DK fantasy points.
Yeah, it's actually official. Torrey Smith is in. So, Julian, what do you think?
Yeah, and I'm expecting Torrey Smith to be that third receiver for Carolina. Samuel and DJ Moore have both been too good lately, which is good for the Panthers. They're finally, getting some production from these young draft picks that they've invested in. Yeah, I agree with Steve here. I think Samuel's going to have a really nice game. He's scored 16.5 or more DraftKings points in 2 of his last 3 games anyway, and this is a really solid matchup. So I don't think this is going out on a limb at all. What I will say is, after that production that DJ Moore showed us last week, he caught 7 of 8 targets for 157 yards and a touchdown. I prefer to try and find the 4,600 to slot DJ Moore into my lineup. I just think he's more of a big play receiver. But at the same time, Samuel has been productive for the Panthers. He's cheaper. If you can't find that salary, I think Samuel's a fine play too. I think you can stack both of these guys with Cam, and now you're getting a really cheap stack. Cam will cost you some money, but you're getting a cheap stack on the receivers, and you can fill your lineup out elsewhere with some higher price plays.
You guys played nice. That was good.
Yeah, Steve.
That was the most tame put up your bukes we've had in a while.
And it wasn't.
He's tired of fighting me because it doesn't go well. I mean, look at that mansion.
Jesse, why don't we end the segment now before things get ugly?
It wasn't. I like how we're like, this is the tamest ever, but we still threw some pretty vicious insults. So, Steve, thank you so much as always. Gary and Thorn joins the program for Thorn in My Side after Adam Kaufman helps deliver Sunday's $1 million picks.
Hey, welcome to $1 Million Picks presented by Roman. ED meds prescribed online, delivered to your door at GetRoman.com. I'm Adam Kaufman, and here's what's up. You want money? We want to help you make it. It's pretty basic. Our $1 Million panel is here to identify guys with the biggest upside during Sunday's main slate. Reed Fowler and Adam Levitan. Levy, let's start with you. Who do you like for this weekend? Give me a couple of targets for our $1 million impact.
Sure, yeah, and I think one place where we've seen coaching make a huge difference is in Arizona and David Johnson. We've seen him get over 6 targets per game under Byron Leftwich when he was around 4. Under Mike McCoy, also seeing the ball a lot more in space, which has led to 63 receiving yards per game. You could say, well, maybe it's matchup based because he's faced the 49ers and the Chiefs, but now comes one of the best possible matchups at home against Oakland. Think Arizona will play well here, and David Johnson will be a big part of it. And then also, I'm going to go a little bit further off the board. It would be really easy at wide receiver to say Michael Thomas, who will almost certainly destroy the Eagles on Sunday. But if we want to save some salary, we can go down to Kenny Golladay, who, with Marvin Jones a little bit banged up, Kenny Golladay is just a bet on talent kind of play week in and week out. Yeah, he has James Bradbury, but I think he can win that matchup against James Bradbury. Golden Tate gone. Sets up really well for Golladay.
Yeah, play everyone, right, against Oakland. That's just sort of a really good strategy. Love those picks. I'm going with running back for my first one. It's Christian McCaffrey, and this is really matchup based, right? You got Detroit, who's pretty bad on defense, right? Kind of going off of what Levy was saying, sticking with Kenny Golladay. When that defense is bad, it really either increases the talent that we have on the offensive side of that team, but also obviously on the defensive side of that team. Looking at 21% of Cam's targets go to Christian McCaffrey. So he's my first bet. A second one, Sterling Shepard, right? We see what Tampa Bay can't do against slot receivers. Tampa Bay is really bad covering against those receivers. And if you look at the past guys who have done well, again, Nelson Aguilar, 8 for 81 and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster, 9 for 116. So the list goes on and on. They can't defend across the middle. So those would be my two guys for the slate.
Just don't choose Le'Veon Bell, as so many of us had hoped to this weekend. Thanks to our $1 Million panel. Enjoyed the games. We will see you next week on $1 Million Picks presented by Roman. ED Meds prescribed online, delivered to your door at GetRoman.com.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Hello again, everybody. So, Garion's late, so...
Apparently.
Anyway, let's give you the inactives, actives for today. We're taking you up to 1 o'clock for NFL kickoff at 1 o'clock for all the 1 o'clock games, and then you guys just go and enjoy the rest of your day. So inactives, A.J. Green, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garçon, Alex Collins, and Charles Clay.
Yeah, and then we have our actives, Tom Brady, Gronk, Sony Michel, Doug Baldwin, Torrey Smith, Robbie Anderson, David Njoku, and Deshaun Jackson.
Okay, so again, we're taking you up to 1 o'clock. Let's go to off-the-wall picks. I think that's what we're going to go to now, and we're going to welcome in... Who's coming in for off-the-wall picks? Oh, okay.
Me, Brandon. It's Jeff.
Brandon!
Jeff, you're not the only one here.
And Rosalie here to class up the joint, and then there's Reed.
All right, so the Colts fanboys in the middle.
I can't even figure it out. First, it's like the...
I got this, okay.
Apartment.
Rosalie is on the far right.
Yeah,
the Grizzly Bear is on the far left, who was wearing the jacket earlier.
Okay.
And then we've got the Colts fanboy in the middle. Go ahead,
All right,
Jessie.
so Reed, we know you've been debating with yourself all morning about this pick. So let's make you go first. Reed, off the wall, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne here. Look, I had an ultimatum to choose between Kendrick Bourne and Dante Pettis, obviously with that Marquise Goodwin news out. But what reigned supreme was that Kendrick Bourne pick. Look, over the last 3 games, we've seen Bourne, 20 routes for the last 4 weeks. We've seen this guy 4 targets per game, 20% target per route run, and he's seeing 90% of the snaps that last game. So with Garçon out, with Goodwin out, look, this game is going to be a shootout, and I think one of these receivers has to provide that outlet. It can't only be George Kittle. I think he's going to have a big game, but I think Kendrick Bourne is the guy that I would choose. My pun's not so good, obviously. I didn't get any laughs, but I'm going Kendrick Bourne in that 3K range.
It's okay, Reed. Let's see if Jeff picks a member of the Colts as his off-the-wall pick.
I did not. I picked a man named Curtis Samuel. And I know Curtis Samuel's getting like a little bit of love today, but then the news comes out that Torrey Smith is going to start and everyone's still on DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is fine, but I mean, I think if you're really asking me who the best wide receiver is on the Panthers today, it's actually Curtis Samuel. This guy was a stud in college. I know the usage hasn't quite been there, and Panthers fans especially want him to get the ball more, but Torrey Smith starting should not dissuade you from using Curtis Samuel, because Torrey Smith is not a good player anymore. And I think the Panthers are going to be forced into letting Curtis Samuel on the field more. I think this is a very, very good spot against the Seahawks secondary that, quite frankly, they're not good. They've been letting a ton of passing yards through the air, big games to wide receivers. I think Curtis Samuel outscores DJ Moore today, and I think at 3,700 you can get real low ownership. So I really, really like Curtis Samuel.
We're in your head now. You're just saying Colts all the time. So really take us off the wall here, Rosalie.
Either that or Jeff is just making every player a Colts player from now on. That's how you win every game, right?
There you go.
I'm going off the wall, and I say off the wall because this is the first time that I am recommending a Buffalo player for this year.
Whoa.
And it's actually Buffalo's D, right? So, especially against Jacksonville, we thought Jacksonville was going to be a much better team this year, but Jacksonville gave up 6 sacks last week. They're 29th in scoring. They have 20 turnovers on the year with at least 1 in each game. So with it, and they had as many as 5 to Kansas City's not so great defense in week 5. Buffalo D is number 1 against the pass, and they're number 10 against the run. And they're top 12 in forcing turnovers. So I'm thinking there's going to be a good amount of turnovers here. I think maybe even for a touchdown. It's not going to be a high-scoring game. It's in very, very cold Buffalo for me. Anything below 70 degrees is really cold for me.
You're lucky.
And when you look at it, the Bills, the Ravens, and the Bears are the league's only defenses allowing fewer than 5 yards per play. So I really like the Buffalo defense at 2,700.
Okay, thank you guys. I was going to make a really fun, dumb joke about Garion and having him in.
Side, yeah.
As it turns out, he's actually been here the whole time. So I'm trying to set up this segment in better fashion. Garion, good to see you. Garion's top fades, we call it Thorn in My Side.
Yeah, and Steve Buchanan is going to be here with him, Julian Edlow as well, to react to Garion's top 3 fades of the day and tell him if they're good, if they stink. You know, Garion, the floor is yours. Let's take it away with that first Thorn.
Let's talk about Josh Adams. It's kind of interesting. I guess it would be ironic, although I feel like I misuse that word a lot. I remember when it was Corey Clement chalk week, and my excuse for not using Corey Clement was, I don't know, they could just give Josh Adams double-digit carries in this game. Now, that didn't happen because Josh Adams never gets double-digit carries, but it really just speaks to the point that I don't trust this Eagles backfield. I feel like Doug Peterson has shown time and time again his propensity is not to use a single back system. I know we have the reports that all of a sudden this is going to be a Jay Ajayi-esque share for Josh Adams, and that's fine. But even if it is, it's not like Jay Ajayi was hyper involved in the passing game either. I mean, this is someone who in his 11 regular season games as an Eagle caught 1 or fewer passes 7 of those 11 times. So I just look at his spot. I know it's a nice value. I know he doesn't have to do much. I know the opponent is good, but just find the $600 to play the other chalky running back in a great spot with Gus Edwards. Heck, pay $100 more and get someone like Peyton Barber, who no one is going to use because there's those 2 other running backs at this tier. No Ronald Jones in this game. Barber has been exceedingly better without Ryan Fitzpatrick behind center for the Bucs. I just don't want to pay for this chalk today until I see it. I need to see it from a Philadelphia running back before I trust anything has actually changed.
Steve, what do you think? Josh Adams, is he going to get the fade?
Yeah, this has been something I've been wrestling with, I think, all morning long. I mean, like Garion said, this is someone who hasn't seen more than 9 carries in a game so far this season. But then the report surfaced that he could be more involved, and that starts to get a little enticing because of how cheap he is. The problem with this slate is there's so many high-priced guys that you want to pay up for that Adams kind of just falls into your lineup whether you want to or not. The thing is, too, is that he's been quite efficient in the small sample sizes that we've seen. He's averaging over 6.7 yards per carry over his last 3 games. But then again, you know, what kind of red zone carries is he going to get? We're not sure about that yet. On the year so far, it's only 8%. I wouldn't say that's very good. But again, there's so much that we have yet to know at this point. If he was a little bit more expensive, it would be an easier fade. But because of how cheap he is, like I said, I feel like you just kind of fall into playing him because he makes a lot of things fit this week. So I'm still 50-50 on this, but I would say I'm going to lean towards playing him this week.
Julian, what do you think? Leaning towards playing him?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are acting like Josh Adams has been around all season and letting us down. Like, Ajayi was around earlier in the season. He goes down. And then Clement and Smallwood are the guys, and Adams is pretty much the third option there. The Eagles said they were going to get him more touches in the last couple of weeks. They have. Now they're saying that they're going to feature him. Why shouldn't we believe them? Even if he gets half the touches in the backfield at 3,800, that is well worth it. The Eagles very well could have been on track or planning to give him more touches last week before they got blown out of the water by the Saints. They're not really going to be handing it off. They lost that game, whatever it was, 45-7, I think. So they're not exactly going to be running the ball that much in that game. But he carried it 7 times and got 53 yards. So this guy can do things with his touches. I think he's going to get more carries in this game as favorites against the Giants, even if the Giants are going to, make this a competitive game like a lot of people are suggesting. At 3,800, you can't complain. You're probably going to get double-digit touches here, and I think it's a really good spot to play Adams.
Gary, and you're like making a lot of sense to the people here, so let's get that second Thorn.
Let's talk about Phillip Lindsay. Lindsay's interesting. I feel like I was worried about him last week with Royce Freeman coming back, and really, to his credit, his role did not change. He played the exact same amount of snaps on a percentage basis that he'd been playing without Freeman the last couple of weeks, but I just think this is a really bad script for the Broncos. I love the Steelers in this game. I feel like they took their foot off the gas pedal last week, and they're not going to make the same mistake. And historically, their offense has thrived on the road when they don't have to play at 1 o'clock. And this is a 4 o'clock game for the Steelers. Look, it just seems like there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for Lindsay to run the ball in this contest. Opponents against the Steelers are only running 34.4% of the time. That's the second lowest opponent rush rate in the NFL. The Broncos have trailed on 85% of their offensive snaps in the second half. That doesn't seem all that good. And even if you look at Lindsay and say, look, everyone's on Mack, everyone's on Chubb, everyone's on Breida, maybe I want to differentiate myself with a running back who's guaranteed to get 15 touches in that same price tier. Just use Sony Michel, because no one's using him either. Like, I can't come up with a single reason to play Phillip Lindsay this weekend.
Can you come up with a single reason to play him, Julian?
I can come up with a single reason to play him because he's been playing very well. He had 26.6 DraftKings points in his last game. That was his second time topping 20 DK points in his last 3 games. So there's your reason to play him. But I'm more 50-50 on this, kind of like Steve was with Josh Adams. Look, it's a nice price point for a guy that's been playing really well, and it's also somebody that's going to be going overlooked with the Marlon Macks, the Matt Breittas, all these guys in this mid-tier price range of running backs that we can play this week. So he will get overlooked. He does have upside, but I do agree that this is a spot where the Steelers are going to smash, which means it's going to be very tough for a running back to produce a big game for the Broncos. But at the same time, we had the Chargers, as I believe they were double-digit favorites last week against the Broncos. If not, it was very close. And Denver winds up winning that game. So am I going to be playing much Phillip Lindsay? No. But is there reason to play him? Definitely.
Steve, what about you? Are you going to maybe go out on a limb? No? Okay. Go ahead.
No reason at all. I mean, look, one thing we have to remember, too, the Steelers are really good against the run. I mean, last week was the first time since week 1 they've allowed over 100 rushing yards to an opposing team. And now that Royce Freeman is back, Lindsay really, his upside is capped at this point. And then his salary just keeps creeping up higher and higher. It's kind of like with Mark Ingram. We liked him when he was down in the 4K range. Then all of a sudden he jumps up to 6K and you're like, I don't know if I really want to play him anymore. This is a week where you want to take Ben Roethlisberger, you want to take Antonio Brown and just get all those points that you can get. There doesn't seem to be a scenario where Lindsay is going to flourish in this game where Ben and Brown should be connecting over and over and over in this game. So Lindsay is a hard pass for me. Didn't even consider him until this segment came up, and I was like, oh, that's right, Lindsay.
Okay, well, Garion, doing very well so far. So let's get your third Thorn.
Yeah, very cordial this week.
Wow.
Thanksgiving.
Jaguars defense. We've had a lot of Bills defense talk, and while I'll admit I'd rather play Bills defense than Jaguars defense, obviously, I'm not even really that into the Bills this week either. I just think this game sets up as such a boring defensive matchup. I think for the Jaguars to hit value, they're almost going to need to shut out the Bills. Now, is that on the table? Sure, the Bills have hemorrhaged points to fantasy defenses so far this season, but we've seen how the Jaguars want to go about winning games, or trying to win games, I guess. They ran the ball 64% of the time last week. They had more than 40 carries as a team. I don't see any reason why they won't try to do that again. And the Bills are the exact same book. They are going to give the ball to Shady McCoy. They are trying to just really not expose how bad their offense is. And I think these teams are just going to be content to run the football, and that means not a lot of dropbacks, which means not a lot of interceptions, not a lot of sack opportunities. I just don't see the Jaguars hitting value here. And as Steve said, this is a week where you're going to want to pay up at wide receiver, pay up at running back. Don't pay for the max defense on the board.
Steve, what do you think?
There hasn't been a week this season I've paid up for the top defense on the week. There's just too many other values that I would rather play. Like, you take a look at what we have here. The Steelers at 3,000 against the Broncos. That feels enticing. The Colts defense against the Dolphins. That feels a good spot too. Even the Browns against the Bengals, I would rather pay down for and save some salary. The Jaguars haven't scored over double-digit fantasy points since week 1. This is a defense that just does not look good at this point. Like Gary said, this feels like a run-heavy game. This feels like a good spot for Shady McCoy. This feels like a good spot for Leonard Fournette. So unless they're going to be fumbling and we have a bunch of recoveries in this game, I just don't see how it makes sense to pay $4K for a defense when there's so many other plays you could pay up for instead. Just go down on defense this week, save the money, pay up for the big guns of running back and wide receiver.
Julian, what do you think? Would you pay up for this defense?
I would not. We are all in agreement here. We will continue to be cordial. The only place that I can fight Gary and I guess there is that I really love the Bills defense on this slate. I think at 2,700 they're in a really good spot at home against the Jaguars, so they're in a smash spot. But paying up for the Jags, $4,000. We've seen the Bills play spoiler before, and even if they don't, the Jags just have to do so much against them to reach value. When there's so many spots that we can spend this money on this slate, even without a lot of the high-priced offenses, the Rams, the Chiefs, the Saints, all off of this slate, take the savings at defense. I think it's pretty simple this week.
Garion, thank you. Bye-bye. Thought I would get a response. Yeah. Time to turn it over to Mr. Adam Kaufman, who spoke with the Sports Pope, WFAN's Mike Francesa, to discuss today's main slate.
It's Sunday. That means football talk. Mike Francesa with us, host of Mike's On the Fan in New York. Mike, something that's close to home for you. Todd Bowles on the hot seat for the Jets. They're struggling, coming off a bye. Have to host a pissed-off Patriots team now. How important is this game for Bowles' future?
Well, enormously important. If he is going to get his job back, he's going to have to do something miraculous. And remember, they have the Pats twice and Green Bay in the last 6 games. So, I mean, that he probably has to win 5. I'm telling you right now, he has no chance of coming back. I mean, barring something as miraculous as that, like winning 5 of 6 when they play Green Bay and New England twice. All you need to know is Belichick hates the Jets. They're coming off a loss and they're coming off a bye. Enough said. But we do have an interesting Giant game.
We do. We'll get there, but let's just do a little more on the Pats first because they're 2-3 on the road this year. Very uncharacteristic. In fact, they've never reached a Super Bowl under Bill Belichick, going worse than 5-3 on the road. So historically speaking, they'd have to win out. Is this a statement game for New England just to say, hey, everybody shut up about Tennessee, we're fine?
No, I don't think they can make statements against the Jets or even in their division. I think the statements have to be made out of the division. But they've reached the point where you know they're going to have locked up the division by early December, no matter what. It's just about whether they can get healthy. And a big part of this to me is Gronk. And here's the thing. Does Gronk want to get healthy? Because Gronk's feelings were really hurt. They tried to trade him in the offseason, and he said, no chance. I'll quit first. And the question is, will he be motivated to come through these injuries? And they need him. They can't. What these games have showed you is Vrabel and Patricia, both Pat guys, knew, I know what to do when you don't have Gronk, and Patricia, I know what to do when I take Gronk away. So both of those guys beat the Pats in these one-sided games, and they did it because Gronk either was taken out of the game by Patricia or not there, and that makes a huge difference for the Patriots. They're a different team when Gronkowski's not there. They have to have him to have any chance.
You brought up the Giants. They're in Philly. They have won back-to-back games since you told me here basically they had to win for Eli Manning to keep his job. Can they upset the defending champs?
Yes. And how has Eli done? I mean, last game, 17-18, 231, 2 touchdowns, ball. He threw one bad pass that almost was a circus catch for Barkley. They ran the ball a little better, so he got play action. Eli got some time. You give Eli time, you go 17-18 for 231. His quarterback rating was 155.8. So there's a little life in the old boy yet. The question now is, what's left in the Eagles, whose secondary is decimated? B, Giants don't match up great against this team for 2 reasons. 1, they have a pass rush. 2, the Giants don't have a pass rush. That's the big problem. The Giants have no pass rush. Eagles should hurt them downfield. And B, they do have a good pass rush, the Eagles. I think the Giants will run it well. I think they'll make big plays. I'm just worried about the Eagles making big plays. The Giant defense was terrible against Tampa. Eli's got a chance, but he's going to have to score in the 30s to win this game.
Well, your guy Andrew Luck is hot, so are his Colts. Can they win their 5th in a row against the Dolphins, maybe even sneak into the playoffs?
Hotter than Georgia asphalt, man. I'm telling you, 7 straight games of 3 or more. Here's the deal. Everyone's already given Mahomes or Breeze the MVP. Be careful. Andrew Luck is a serious MVP candidate. What he has done with this team, I thought this team had no chance to be this good because they were a mess when the season started. He hasn't been sacked in 4 games. He's not getting touched. When he doesn't get touched, he's going to hurt you. He's not going to hurt you. He's going to destroy you. And that's how well they're playing. Yes, I think they win again. Yes, they're a threat now to go to the playoffs in that division. They are not out of it. And considering that they were, had 1 win after 5 games, that's pretty impressive. It really is.
Yeah, just imagine what could have been all these years had they kept Andrew Luck healthy with a little bit of offensive line protection.
As good as it. I've said this a couple of times, and people have said, what are you talking about? This guy is as good as any player in football. That's how good he is.
Big one for Sunday Night Football, Mike. Division clash between the Packers and Vikings, both coming off of losses. Green Bay has to win to keep its playoff hopes alive. Is Mike McCarthy's future riding on this?
Yeah, and I think it's not riding well. I think he's going to be out at the end of the year. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think the Vikings probably win this game, and they win it with their pass rush. I think the Viking defense will come up big against the Packers here, and it's a rough game for the loser. Really bad loss for the loser. This is a telling hit to the solar plexus for the loser in this game.
Busy time of year as always. Mike, thanks again. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
All righty, Francesa's back with us tomorrow to preview Tennessee and Houston. Let's squeeze the whole crew in here now. Let's get comfortable, guys. Jeff, Reed, Rosalie, and Steve, the Quad Bucks. Over under to take us up to kickoff, guys. We'll also take some questions from the people at home in just a few. Highest projected point total on the main slate, guys. Niners at Bucks, 54.5. Over under. Jeff, you're first.
I like the under here. I mean, I hate expecting or relying on 2 bad teams.
Get mad, Jeff. Get mad.
And the Tampa and the 49ers are both below average in red zone efficiency here. So Nick Mullins, Jameis Winston, no, I'll take the under here at 54. I think it's just too big.
Reed?
Hell, Jeff's crazy here. I'm going to take the over. I think when you look at these teams, they're really bad on defense. I get that you're depending on Jameis and Nick Mullins to hit that. But I think this is more indicative of these defenses giving up a lot of points. And if you look at Tampa Bay and Jameis, that quarterback position, right? That's the name that we have to use. Insert either Fitzmagic, Fitztragic, or Jameis. They're throwing a ton, and both teams are top 5 in terms of pace of play. Tampa Bay is top 5 in pace of play, and just these defenses are bad. So I'm going to rely on these 2 teams more so than the teams that we talked about potentially hitting that over as one of my locks in terms of what I think is going to happen.
Quick reminder, Marquise Goodwin, Pierre Garçon inactive for this one. Rosalie, over under.
I'm going to agree with Reed. Jeff is crazy. Sorry, Jeff. But, Tampa Bay is 80% on the over so far this year in their games. It's 2 terrible defenses with teams that can score some points, right? Tampa Bay is still number 1 in passing yards on the season. San Francisco is number 3 in rushing yards on the season. They can both move the ball, and neither D can stop the other one. Plus, you know what? We've got Goodwin out, but there's still a little guy named George Kittle that's there, and a Matt Breida. So I like the over in this.
All right, Steve, what do you got?
I'm taking the under on this one. Like Jeff said, these are just
the boys in blue.
I mean, we're sitting here, banking on Nick Mullins and Jameis Winston, Dante Pettis, Kendrick Bourne. Boy, let me load all those guys up. I'm going to get a lot of fantasy points here. I mean, there's some good plays in this game. I'll definitely give you that. But 54.5, that feels like a lot. I mean, that's, 5.5 less than the Saints and the New Orleans the other game. I mean, that's just seems a little crazy.
The Bucs put up 400 yards and scored 3 points last week,
right?
Or 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was.
I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Reed and Rosalie have nothing for the Blue Man Group.
Okay, guys.
We have something.
Yeah, well, Dolphins at the Colts, Jeff. Over under 52, Reed.
Yeah, I'm going to say under here, kind of the same sentiment about this guy. I mean, look, Indianapolis will have to do it potentially on their own. If you look at Miami, they're only averaging about 14 points over their last 4. Granted, you bring Tannehill back. We just don't know what's going to happen. Do they give Frank Gore all the touches in a revenge narrative? I don't really think so. But when you look at that offense with Miami, you just don't know what's going to happen. I know Amendola is in a potentially good GPP, a tournament pivot spot. I don't trust it. If you believe that Andrew Luck and the Colts can score around 36 to 38 points on their own, which is kind of what they've done, you have to expect Miami to hit that 20 mark. And I just don't believe they can do it. So I'm going to say under.
What about you, Rosalie?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Reed here. It's just, Indianapolis can score 38 points. We've seen them do it. They've been doing it. But I just can't see the Miami offense doing enough to get this game to 52. You know what? Tannehill's back, yes. But if you look at it, he's averaged under 200 passing yards a game in the 5 games that he played. That's not a lot. The Colts offense is flying, but they should target the run D a lot. We've been talking a lot about Marlon Mack and how utilized he's going to be in this game as opposed to passing the ball. They've had 2 recent games with over 200 yards rushing. I think they go this way again today.
Steve, what do you think?
I mean, the Giants and Eagles are like 48, but this game's at 52. What are we doing here? How is that even possible? What's Tannehill going to do? Like toss a couple of interceptions? Like literally, the Colts could score 30. Okay, we'll give the Colts 30. Do you really think that the Dolphins are going to score 22, 23 in this game? Go to Jeff.
Come on, Colts lover.
I'm taking the over because the Colts.
Yeah, come on.
Honestly, the Colts could score 50 points in this game. And look, Steve said, "Oh, the Colts are going to put up." The Colts will put up 30 points. They've been doing that like 7 straight games or 5 straight games, whatever it's been. They're putting up 30 points a game. Now they get Miami. Like Miami's going to stop them? No. So I did like this game a lot better at 49, I admit, but 52, I'm still going to take the over because I think Indy is such a high upside spot. And again, Miami's offense is brutal, but Tannehill's back. They should be able to get to 20.
Wait, Jeff, do you like Marlon doesn't catch anything in the backfield? I mean, he's just going to run all over Miami. I mean, come on.
I hate to do this again, but last week I had to be on you guys about time. We have 5 minutes to kick off. Steelers, Broncos, in Mile High, 47 points. Over, under. Rosalie.
Under. You know what? Both defenses are pretty decent. Denver run D isn't as good. You know, they give up the 5th most rushing yards. But I don't think this is going to be a very high-scoring game there in Denver. Denver, they're just – I don't see a lot of offense happening here, more defense, and I think there's going to be a lot of running with both Connor and Lindsey. So I'm going under here.
Steve.
Looking forward to Emerson coming back, and I'm going to go over.
Oh, my God.
I just think the Steelers are going to smash in this spot. I think this is just such a big game, like for Ben and Antonio Brown, as I said earlier. And then, so let's give them 30 points. Denver is totally capable of putting 18 points in this game. I think it definitely goes over in this one.
Reed.
Yeah, especially a backdoor cover with Denver. I think Steve's right. We've seen Case Keenum hit these spots late in the 4th. We wish he did it in all 4 quarters, right? Because there's some enticing plays there. But the only thing that scares me is Ben's now traveling to traveled to Jacksonville. Now he's going to Denver. We all know Ben, his road splits, although he's been good on the road. So I'm going to say under, or excuse me, I'm going to say that they, that they cover here.
All right, and Jeff.
You get all that, everyone?
That they cover. I think he meant over. I'm going to take the over. I'll rely on the Steelers to put up enough points. I'll take the over, too.
Tremendous.
All right, guys, now we're going to take some of these questions from the interwebs. Reed, Chubb or Aaron Jones?
I think you got to go Chubb here. If you look at Cincinnati's run defense, really, really bad. We mentioned it earlier. This could be a running back game where we see Mixon and Chubb go off. So I'm going to go Chubb here.
Twitter question from @JWilliams263. Let's go to Steve. He's a social guy. Thoughts on the... Actually, no. Sorry, Steve. We're going to go to Jeff. Thoughts on the Indy defense after a decent performance last week?
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
Like I said, under 3K. It's a great spot for Indy. Very underrated team. I really like them, for real.
I set him up all too perfectly there.
Another one? Yeah, let's go. Steve, for flex, DJ Moore or Josh Adams?
I think I would go with DJ Moore. I think he has a safer floor here. We still don't really know what we're going to get out of Adams yet, so rather be late to the party than early, but, you know, we'll
100
see.
yards and a touchdown. That's what you're getting out of Josh Adams.
Oh, boy.
Hey, how about Rosalie? We'll get Rosalie involved. Another Twitter one. Cousins or Rivers at quarterback?
Oh, God. I don't love either of those this week. But I think I'm going to go Rivers against Arizona, my Arizona Cardinals, just because you know that Rivers is going to throw some balls with Melvin Gordon not being fully healthy. So I'll go Rivers over Cousins here.
Jeff, start Eric Ebron or Cameron Brate in full PPR.
Brate. Jameis Winston loves Brate. I like Brate.
How about
Brate again?
Brate is great.
Reed, one more. Breda or Sony Michel?
I'm going to go Brady here. I think with a healthy scratch with Alfred Morris just recently coming out, I think, if you look at Shanahan, how he wants to style that game, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I know these guys potentially don't trust in this being a high-scoring game, but we've seen Breda have that lead role. And now he's finally healthy, potentially, without having all of these injuries. He's had a couple of weeks to get healthy. So I'm going to say Breda.
All right, before we let you guys go, locks for the day, please. Slate-approved picks. Let's go Jeff first.
The Killer, George Kittle. Kyle Shanahan's trying to make George Kittle a Hall of Famer this year. 10 targets plus, book it.
Not a Colts.
What? All right, Reed, let's get that slate approved.
Yeah, it's going to be OBJ. That secondary and the Philly defense is just decimated with injuries, so give me OBJ.
Rosalie, 5 seconds.
I'm going on the Chubb train. Choo-choo.
Julian Edelman.
Oh, man, okay. Thanks, Steve. I didn't even have to ask you.
Wow, terrific.
5 seconds.
That was fun. Jesse,
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you. The Sweat is live every Sunday through Friday. DK Live app. There's that cool little watch tab now. You can watch the show.
Watch it.
Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're back at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Well, I'm kind of here, I'm involved. She is definitely going to be here.
I'm definitely here, and Emerson will be back. So
yes.
bye-bye. We'll see you
With
tomorrow.
The tan, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Hopefully.